The last transmission from Aerolus 4 ended in static, and something worse. A woman's scream pierced the comms, sharp and final. Then came a deep, metallic snarl. Not mechanical. Not human. Not anything Earth had engineered. Then nothing. Silence. 3 hours later, the Zereth Empire issued a proud broadcast. Aerolus 4 is under Imperial custody. All trespassers have been cleansed. May their ashes fertilize progress. The Galactic Council filed no protest. Deep beneath the Eurasian wastes, in a black site scrubbed from all satellite records, Commander Kale Draven stood in front of a reinforced blast door. A red strobe pulsed from the ceiling. Activation protocol, Reaper. He hadn't heard that name in 5 years. The AI beside him, a disembodied voice laced with synthetic empathy, spoke without ceremony. Commander, all units are on standby. Final authorization required. Kale didn't answer immediately. His eyes lingered on the door. Behind it slept the men and women he'd buried, figuratively and literally. He placed his palm on the scanner. Authorization, Draven. Initiate Reaper. The door hissed. The dead walked. Inside the chamber, 5 soldiers stirred on cold metal slabs. Each one wore a matte black exosuit with no insignia, no name, no trace of the world they once belonged to. Eyes opened, some were human, others glassy with cybernetic enhancements. None blinked. Kale's voice broke the sterile hum. Welcome back. The tallest among them stood first. Codename Vex. Once a demolitions expert, now fused with spinal shock stabilizers and implanted thermals that could melt steel. Beside him, Wraith slipped off the slab without a word. Her presence was spectral, even her boots didn't echo. One by one, the shadows assembled. Briefing, Kale began. Aerolus 4 has been overrun. Death Legion, full strength. Civilians executed. The Empire claims it now. No Council interference. No one's coming. He tapped the console. A 3D map of Aerolus flickered to life. Red clusters marked enemy deployments. Mining sites. Colonist zones. Flame icons over each. Orders? Asked a voice from the back, gravel and defiance. Rebar. Kale's jaw tightened. Total reclamation. Kill anything that breathes Zereth air. Vex cracked his knuckles. Thought we were dead. We are, Kale replied. That's what makes us perfect. Their drop was silent. No engines. No chatter. Aerolus 4 rotated below them, a scarred moon lit by a dying sun. Once a bustling colony of engineers and farmers, now just smoldering ruins and charred skeletons. No resistance. No survivors. The Death Legion had done its job. Omega landed just outside Sector 9, an old cargo base surrounded by slag mounds and broken turrets. Smoke curled from twisted homes. A toy, half melted, lay in the dirt. Kale crouched beside it, brushing away ash. A child's name was carved on the side. Lena. He stood and keyed his comms. Ghost mode. Fan out. Leave no eyes behind. The team scattered. Within 10 minutes, Rebar had lured a patrol into a collapsed tunnel with an active distress beacon. When the 3 Zereth soldiers entered, thinking they'd found a survivor, he dropped the ceiling on them. No gunfire. No trace. Wraith, moving through the wreckage of the North Station, planted proximity shivs, slivers of coated steel that detonated on nerve proximity. She watched 2 Death Legionnaires stumble past, triggered the blades, and walked on before the bodies hit the ground. Vex approached the power core compound with a brick of shaped plasma. By the time the Zereth sensors picked up the temperature spike, the generator had gone critical. Half the outpost went dark. Panic erupted across enemy comms. Kale stood on a tower above the chaos, watching it spread like a disease. Let them talk, he said into his comms. Let them guess. We don't exist, remember? A weak, static-laced transmission bled through. Enemy unknown. Not Council. Not human? A smirk touched Kale's lips. Close. He moved through the ruins of the command center. Blood stained the walls. Symbols painted by children in better times remained half-burned across bunk doors. Cale entered what had once been the central broadcast room. Inside, a Zarath officer, rank etched in bone armor, knelt over a console, barking orders. Cale didn't announce himself. He raised his silencer, fired once. The round passed through the officer's spine, then the console, then the wall. Clean. Final. On the shattered screen, the camera feed from another sector flickered on. 5 Death Legionnaires stood over a family, man, woman, child. The child held a stuffed bear. One of the soldiers raised a blade. Cale watched, jaw clenched, eyes unmoving. He pressed his comms. Wraith. Grid G22. You're close. I see them. Her whisper crackled back. 10 seconds later, the camera feed went dark. Cale exhaled, long and slow. Then he saw it, scrawled on the back wall of the control room, written in what could only be blood. You shouldn't have come. He stared at the words. They weren't from the colonists. They were from someone else. The Empire thought it owned this place. They didn't realize Earth had already laid its claim, with something colder than justice. Revenge. Cale turned to the team channel. Begin message transmission. Wideband. Make sure they all hear it. Rebar's voice crackled. What message? Cale's tone was iron. We're here. We're watching. We don't knock. We don't talk. We just clean up your mess. He paused. Then added, This is Earth's response. The body count started small, 1, then 3, then 5, but it wasn't the numbers that rattled the Death Legion. It was how their soldiers disappeared. No screams. No gunfire. Just armor left behind, perfectly folded, weapons missing, bloodless. Lord General Threx Vorn stood in the central command dome, flanked by 2 of his hybrid tacticians, eyes scanning the holograms flickering around him. The red zones had grown teeth. Earth's shadows were spreading. This is no rebellion, Threx muttered. He turned to the soldier on surveillance. Where's the footage? The Zarath technician hesitated. Gone, my lord. Feed corrupted. Hard drives melted. But before the systems collapsed, we captured something. He pulled up a blurry still, 7 figures in black exocets moving through smoke. No insignia. No heat signatures. One of them looked straight into the camera. Its eyes weren't visible. Just a hollow glare behind a polarized visor. Threx narrowed his eyes. What do they call themselves? Unknown. He leaned in, voice low and certain. Find me a survivor. I want a name. Half a mile west of the eastern quarry, a Death Legion squad moved through the ruins of a comms station. The ash was ankle-deep, the silence heavy. Their boots crunched over cracked stone and melted circuits. Then one of them froze. Did you hear that? The leader held up a hand. Quiet. A whisper cut through the air. Not a word, just the faintest drag of breath behind them. When they turned, no one was there. Suddenly, a cable whipped down from the beams above. One soldier went up without a sound, his rifle clattering uselessly to the floor. 2 more pivoted and fired at nothing. Bullets rang against steel in silence. Then Wraith stepped into view, cloaked in smoke, eyes like voids. She didn't speak. She moved, fast, precise. A knife in one hand, a shock baton in the other. The first soldier crumpled before his scream formed. The second she stabbed twice, once in the side, once in the neck. The last ran. He made it 5 steps before a boot cracked his knee sideways. Rebar emerged from the dust, expression flat. He grabbed the helmet and twisted. Sharp and final. Clear, Rebar muttered into comms. Wraith knelt beside the last soldier, searching his comm device. Static. Then faint voices. Panicked ones. Another squad's gone dark. What is this? Cale's voice came through Omega's private channel. Play that back. Let them hear their own fear. Wraith did. Across all frequencies. In the command dome, Threx clenched his jaw as the transmission looped again. Squad's gone dark. What is this? What is this? What is this? He slammed a fist into the console. They're mocking us. A junior officer approached cautiously. Permission to deploy the Shriekers, my lord? No. Not yet. These ghosts want a response. We'll give them something better. Cale crouched on a rooftop, scanning the refinery district through thermal optics. Legion patrols moved in tighter formations now, nervous, twitchy. They'd stopped shouting orders and started whispering. Good. Omega's infiltration had shifted from sabotage to psychological collapse. Cale's goal wasn't just elimination. It was erosion. Below, Vex stood beside a power conduit. He was wrapping a shaped charge around it, fingers moving with clinical rhythm. Package set, he said. Cale nodded. Wait for my mark. Across the way, 2 Zereth snipers took position on a scaffold. They had clear shots toward the central square. One settled into aim. Then his scope exploded, taking his eye with it. The second turned to flee but stopped when he saw a message spray-painted in red across the wall behind him. We don't miss twice. A soft click. He didn't even hear the shot. Wraith's voice buzzed over the line. Rooftops clear. Cale gave the signal. Blow it. The refinery's power conduit detonated with a muted boom. The lights in the entire sector flickered, then died. In the dark, shadows moved. And the Death Legion began to break. 2 hours later, the Empire's reinforcements landed on the outskirts, 18 elite Zereth shock troops. Heavily armed, pulse cannons, full sensor grids. They moved in a V formation toward the old maintenance tunnels. One of them stepped on something soft. He looked down. A severed helmet, crushed in. Blood still fresh. In the helmet's mouthpiece, someone had wedged a crude note. Wrong tunnel. Then the walls caved in. Explosives pre-planted, the entire corridor collapsed inward. Smoke belched upward. Screams followed. 3 emerged. Then 2. Then none. Omega never fired a single bullet. Back at their temporary ops station, an old geothermal bunker, Cale debriefed the squad. We've eliminated 12 patrols. Disrupted power. Seized 5 weapons caches. Next, Command Core. Vex leaned on the wall, arms crossed. We're close to overexposure. They're closer to collapse, Cale said. Rebar sat sharpening a combat blade. You saw what they did to those kids. This ain't war. This is payback. Cale nodded slowly. Exactly. He stood, facing the darkened map. They sent killers. He looked to his team. We sent something worse. The Empire finally stopped pretending it had control. Lord General Threx Vorn stood rigid as a fresh report bled red across his central holomap. Another unit gone. Not disabled. Not even vaporized. Just missing. Their locator chips blinked erratic signals, bouncing between impossible coordinates, as if something was dragging them through walls, space, time. He'd underestimated Earth. Deploy the Apex killers, he ordered, eyes locked forward. The technician flinched. They're not field-tested yet, my lord. We haven't. Threx turned. His voice was arctic. I'm not requesting a performance review. I want results. The room fell silent. Within the hour, 4 transport pods screeched across the airless sky and slammed into the surface like falling stars. Out stepped nightmares, the apex killers. Genetically altered behemoths. 8 feet tall, plated in black armor that pulsed with psionic cores. No faces. Just glowing slits and twitching claws. Creatures bred not for victory, but spectacle. They didn't walk. They stalked. Cale knew something new had arrived the moment the wind changed. Omega had taken up a temporary hold in the husk of an old mining shaft. Wraith was scanning enemy channels when a signal hit, static, high-pitched. Then silence. Then breathing. She yanked off the headset. Something's jamming us. Visuals, Cale ordered. Vex activated the thermal grid. The feed came alive, then warped. At the edge of the screen, heat signatures bent like smoke, dragged through space like they didn't belong there. What is that? Rebar asked, blade in hand before anyone spoke. Kale didn't blink. Apex units. Black files from Lunar Archives. I saw one during the Helios uprising. He looked them over. They don't need orders. They just need something to kill. In the outer zone of the refinery ruins, 2 members of Omega's recon team, Juno and Locke, stood watch. Quiet tonight, Locke muttered, adjusting his optic lens. Juno didn't reply. She was staring at the shadows. Then she whispered, Did you hear that? Locke turned, and a mass hit him. Not like a man. Like a wrecking ball of steel and muscle. Juno screamed, fired 3 rounds into the dark, then ran. She didn't make it far. When Kale found the site later, all that remained were drag marks, a cracked helmet, and Locke's dog tag embedded in a wall, like a trophy. Kale picked up the tag, rolled it between his fingers. Rebar. Yeah? We bury this one with fire. Omega regrouped at the central pipeline junction. Every member stood armed, armor tightened, silence thick. Kale stepped forward, holding Locke's tag. We lost 2. Vex slammed a fist into the wall, leaving a dent. They came in fast. We weren't ready. That's changing now, Kale replied. We push to the command core tonight. Rebar checked his weapon. What about the monsters? Kale met his gaze. We bring out our own. He opened a locked case. Inside, 4 syringes, glowing pale blue. Ray stepped back. No. We don't have a choice, Kale said. The syringes contain Project Revenant serum, an illegal neuroagent banned even by Earth's standards. It unlocked parts of the brain and body humans weren't meant to use. The side effects? Nerve breakdown, emotional decay, shortened lifespan. But the effect? Power. Raw, weaponized, unrelenting. Kale looked at them all. You were ghosts already. This just makes it official. One by one, they injected the serum. No one hesitated. Night fell over Aerolus 4 like a shroud soaked in smoke. Omega descended into the command core zone through collapsed tunnels and black water vents. Every movement was fluid now, faster, sharper. The serum had taken hold. Vex crushed a reinforced hatch with his bare hands. Wraith moved across walls like liquid shadow. Rebar no longer needed light to see. Kale felt his mind expanding. He could hear enemy movement through vibrations, taste the air for metallic shifts. They were not human anymore. They were purpose. Inside the core, Threx paced before the holodisplay. Behind him, the Apex killers stood dormant, twitching, sensing. Let them come, Threx whispered. Let Earth show me its broken toys. Omega struck like lightning. The first Apex unit fell to a double-team strike. Wraith jammed a thermal blade between its ribs while Vex overloaded its core with a sonic charge. The second one screamed. The sound wasn't natural. It shook the steel around them. Rebar answered by slamming a spike grenade into its chest and detonating it mid-roar. Kale moved ahead, straight toward the heart of the command core. The final Apex stood in his path, twitching, stalking. Kale said nothing. The Apex charged. Kale sidestepped, dropped low, and drove his fusion blade upward into the creature's torso. It howled and threw him back, but the blade had punctured the psionic core. As it lurched, leaking energy, Kale rose to his feet. You wanted a war, he said. But you don't even know what we buried. He fired. The Apex exploded, raining molten shards. Kale reached the command deck. Threx stood alone, blade drawn. Regal, tall, cold. You, Threx sneered. You're Earth's answer? A half-dead grunt in stolen tech? Kale took off his helmet. No, he said. I'm what Earth sends after talking fails. Threx lunged. Kale moved faster. Their blades clashed, metal sang, sparks flew. Kale took a cut across the arm. Threx took one across the chest. Neither stopped. Threx growled. You fight like a cornered animal. Kale answered, breath even. Because we are. And cornered things bite. With a final surge, Kale drove his blade through Threx's shoulder, pinned him to the console, and whispered, "You forgot. Earth doesn't lose. We just wait." As Kale walked away, bleeding but upright, the command core lit up in flames behind him. Omega gathered in silence. No cheers. No celebration. Just purpose fulfilled. Kale looked up at the scorched sky and whispered, "One left." The command deck of Aerolus IV's central facility was a tomb now. A place where the Empire's best had bled into the earth, their screams swallowed by the same cold silence that had long ruled this sector. Kale stood in the heart of it all, staring at the console. The flashing red lights seemed almost pathetic now. His suit was torn, his body bloody from the battle. Yet, despite the exhaustion, the fire in him had only grown. "We're done here," Kale muttered to his team, though he knew the words meant nothing. They weren't done. Not until they sent a message, one the galaxy would never forget. The wind outside howled through the cracks in the building, carrying with it the scent of smoke and blood. Kale adjusted his helmet, the faceless mask now something symbolic. Not just protection, but a shield. A barrier between him and the man he used to be. Vex approached, his voice low. "That was too easy. Threx, he was barely a challenge." Kale didn't respond immediately. He focused on the still rolling feed from the outside cameras. Reinforcements had been called for, but it would take hours, maybe longer, for them to breach the atmosphere. It wouldn't matter. The planet's fate had already been sealed. "Earth doesn't deploy soldiers," Kale said, voice tight. "We deploy consequences." Rebar walked past them, smirking. "You think they'll retaliate?" Kale didn't answer. He didn't need to. The message had already been sent. Every single camera feed had been hijacked, every transmission broadcast across the Empire's networks, across the entire galaxy. He looked to the rest of his team, each member standing silently, almost reverently. None of them were human anymore, at least not in the way the galaxy understood the term. But they were Earth's final word. Earth's last act in a galaxy that had turned its back on them. Across the battlefield, the Zereth Legion was in disarray. The Empire's reinforcements had arrived, but they were met with a desolate landscape. Nothing was as it seemed. Where they expected to see an organized resistance, they found nothing but the aftermath of the Earth's vengeance. "Are we sure there's anyone left alive?" one officer asked, his voice shaky as he surveyed the ruins. A second officer glanced down at the bodies strewn across the compound. "Only the ones we missed." Far behind them, the last of the apex killers had fallen, their mechanical limbs twisted into grotesque shapes by Earth's fire. It had taken everything to bring them down, but the message was clear. They had underestimated humanity. In the command center, Kale's fingers danced across the console. The final sequence was underway, something that would ensure the Empire knew that Earth's wrath was not something they could ignore. He glanced up at his team, each of them quiet, but all of them understood the gravity of the next move. "It's time," Kale said. He stood straight and cracked his neck. "Rebar, initiate the final transmission." Rebar gave him a curt nod and connected his equipment. The feed flickered to life, filling the screen with Kale's image, his helmet removed, blood staining the edge of his suit. His gaze was steady, unflinching. "We are Earth." Kale's voice came over the galaxy-wide broadcast, every syllable laced with calm vengeance. "We are not your allies. We are not your pawns. And we are not afraid to be forgotten." He paused, letting the weight of the words settle over the silence. The camera zoomed out slightly, showing the destruction that had already claimed the Empire's finest. "You thought you could sweep us under the rug. Thought you could treat us like another insignificant world. But we're not. This is our galaxy as much as it is yours." Kale stepped forward, his eyes burning into the camera. "This was a warning," he continued, voice growing colder. "Next time, we won't be the ones on the receiving end." The message cut out abruptly. Kale looked to his team, his face grim. "Now we leave." The shuttle was silent as it lifted from the ruined landscape of Aerolus 4. Below them, the planet seemed to be breathing, dying maybe. The remnants of humanity's last fight against a power that thought itself untouchable. Wraith sat with her arms folded, staring out of the viewport. Do you think they'll send more? They'll send everything they've got, Kale said, his voice steady. And we'll be ready. They'll have to come for us eventually. Do you think they'll find us? Vex asked. Kale turned to him, his expression unreadable. They won't. For a moment, silence fell over the shuttle as they all drifted toward the stars. Hours later, as the shuttle exited the planet's atmosphere, a fresh broadcast crackled over the comms. The voice that came through was familiar. It was the Zareth High Command. But there was something different about it this time. A note of hesitation, of confusion. This is High Command. We've received reports from the front lines. Aerolus 4 is lost. Our forces have been completely neutralized by an unknown enemy. Kale smiled slightly. They finally figured it out. The voice continued. We will not stand for this. We will retaliate. We will rebuild. And we will erase this shame. The transmission cut. Kale turned to his team, each member looking at him with an unspoken question. But he didn't need to say anything. They all knew. We did our part, Kale said softly. Now they'll make their move. And when they do... He let the sentence hang in the air, unfinished. There was no need to say more. The shuttle was moving toward the unknown. The galaxy had changed, and Earth was no longer the underdog. We'll be ready, Kale finished, as the stars stretched out before them.